Good afternoon. Today is March 6th, 2021, and we are currently in Stow, Ohio with the National Museum of Education to conduct an interview for the Kent State Guardsman Oral History Project. I want to thank you for participating. My name is Lindy Holmes. I'm a senior at Ohio Northern University, majoring in history, minor public history, museum studies, minor in religion.
Hi, I'm Jordan Clegg. I go to Ohio Northern University. I'm a history major, and I am pursuing a minor in public history and museum studies as well. Could you please state your name and where you're from?
Karl Hugh Brennamen, Greensburg, Ohio.
How long and in what capacity do you serve in the National Guard?
I served August of '66 to August of '72.
Okay. And then why did you decide to join the National Guard?
Should I tell you why, or why did I join the National Guard?
Mm-hmm.
They were, first of all, the Vietnam War was wrong. They were killing 550 Americans a week, and it was an alternative. Every boy got his draft notice when he was 18, and they had to deal with it. So some guy said, well, I'm going to go to college and get a deferment. Well, that's good. So I just feel the war is wrong, and you had to do something because everybody had to deal with it. So I chose the Guard because I didn't want to deal with Vietnam, to be honest with you. But at that time period, you have to serve your country. Anybody who doesn't do that is no good. They're just, you have to serve your country. You had the option to go to Canada, but that's too far out there. Does that answer it? Okay.
What was your full-time job during the Guard?
Nobody would hire you with a 1A classification. That means you're ready to go. If you didn't have that, everybody in Akron would hire you because there were so few. Everybody had to deal with that. So I walked into Goodyear and got a job at Goodyear. And at that time, Goodyear paid $3.41 an hour, and that was huge money. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with all that money. I said, I'll be kicking it away from the door and I'd get it in the house. There'd be so much money.
You have trouble opening the door.
Hard to believe that, isn't it? That was a starting wage of good, and that's factory money. I mean, that was big time.
Right.
How long did you work at Goodyear?
Well, 11 years, and then I moved on to another job, then went back to Goodrich for 5. But the time I was in the Guard was, I was at Goodyear.
What were some of the reasons that your Guard unit was called out to Kent State?
Well, Akron is also the trucking capital of the world, and they were having a truck strike, and they called us out for a truck strike. And if you know the Akron area, Archwood is where all the trucking companies were, and we had to escort 11 Mason-Dixon trucks to Kent, and Archwood was lined with troops on both sides to get these 11 trucks out. And the truckers those are scab drivers, and they were throwing rocks at them as they were pulling the trucks out. And then that was May 1st, May 2nd, somewhere in there.
Do you have any specific memories or specific emotions during the time that you were being deployed to Kent?
Yes.
Such as?
After the truck strike, we went back to Greensburg. Then they put us in trucks on May 3rd. They put us in these trucks, and a 2.5 truck has canvas on both sides. They strapped us in. Well, why would they do that? Because they never did it before, so they took us and we rode and rode and rode, and they pulled up to a big, it was a Clarkins, which is kind of like a Kmart is now, or Walmart. And they said, go in there and do your business. Don't look at nothing, don't touch nothing, come back out. And so we get out of the truck and look around, and I said, boy, this looks like we're up here on 43 heading into Kent. And I said, Wonder where they're taking us this May 3rd. Back in the truck, take us, we get out, we're at the Ravenna National Guard Armory, because I saw it on the door when I went in. May 3rd. Okay.
Can you describe the scene and kind of like how you were feeling and how the other National Guardsmen were feeling on May 3rd? And did you guys have any idea, besides you kind of suspecting maybe you were going to Kent?
I'm not going to have to go to jail if I say any of this. I'm kind of concerned about being put in prison. Go in, do what you're told. Go in and sleep on the floor, the gym at the Ravenna Arsenal. The next morning we get up and have breakfast, and it's May 4th. And they put us in a formation, you know, where everybody lines up. And they said, a captain, that's above a lieutenant, comes out there and says, I have an announcement to make. Now we have no access to paper, cell phone, any of that. And he says, 10 students have been killed and 4 National Guardsmen. And we want you men to prepare to go into combat. Now, if anybody would like to talk to a priest, we have one here, but make it quick. And my buddy's standing beside me, and he said, well, what did he just say? What? What? Somebody got killed, May 4th. He asked me this, and I said from the time of the shooting till I hit the campus, I said 20 minutes, but it could have been a little bit longer, could have been, but it was within the hour. And he said, we're heading in. So we go in, now we're raising up the canvas to see what's going on, and we get to 59 and 43. Are you familiar with this area? Well, it's all changed now. Sidewalk is jammed with people. The old guys are going, hooray, hooray. And the college students are going, yeah. And so we pull in, and my impression was mass hysteria. People running every direction, you know, just running, you know, and everything running. And where they put the statues up, that's Blanket Hill. And May 3rd, they burnt the ROTC building down, and they called in the fire department. The fire department is putting it out, and the students are cutting the fire hoses so they couldn't put it out. It burnt completely down. I mean, there was nothing there but a foundation. We get up there on the top. Now, this is the sticky, we're about 45 minutes after the shooting. On the other side, the shooting was over here, and we're at the top of the hill over here. And when I looked down the hill, it was like looking at the biggest rock concert you've ever been at, Blue Jeans, just a sea of blue jeans. And they said, high port, which, you know, hold the gun up here, and march down the hill and break up this, they were protesting. And I said, please, now it's getting scary, is what's going to happen. So halfway down that hill, finally they all got up and moved and left. And then this quiet came on the campus where you could not hear a sound. And they took the privates like this, the corporals behind them, the sergeants behind them, the higher rank is back. And then the dean of Kent, and his name was Woods, comes riding through in a convertible like a prom queen or a homecoming queen with a megaphone saying, please leave this campus. If you're not military personnel, please leave. And so then they kept us there doing guard duty for the rest of the week.
So after your arrival and after the shootings, were you feeling any kind of anxieties, mostly confusion?
Frightened, I would answer that with, because you don't know what's coming.
Frightened for yourself?
Yeah, you know,
right.
You know, and then they were doing a lot of construction there, so they had a lot of stuff to throw, and stuff's coming out of the sky like a beer can half full of urine comes flying through the air, and that didn't taste too good. And then they lowered sheets over the side of the building after the National Guard. So, does that answer it?
Yes.
Am I on the right track here?
Yes, of course.
All right.
What do you recall about the media coverage of the shootings? Do you remember like right after the event, what was on TV or?
No, because we didn't have access to the TV, we didn't, or the paper, we didn't know any of this, until after the shooting.
Sure.
But, how was that?
Were you there for how many days? Do you
A
know
week.
approximately? A week
A
after.
week, was there a week after. We ate in the dormitory cafeteria and slept on the gym floor. And they kept foreign exchange students, they let them stay. But they closed her down, shut off the roads, that type of thing. I should say this, agitators were there, and they had black flags, and we were ordered, if you find a black flag laying on the ground, turn it in, because they brought in outside agitators. And then when after they cut the fire hoses, the looting started, and then that's when they called in everybody. Plus all of the National Guard, or Highway Patrol was there too. So they were all there.
With all of the interest surrounding this event, did you follow any of the media coverage and the trials after this?
Yes, somewhat. There was a picture of a guy who caught the shooting, and he was an officer, which is above a, and the picture caught the gun in the recoil. You know when you shoot a .45, the bullet goes out, then the whole thing comes back to reload? The camera caught that with it on the return, which means he fired it. Okay? I told him, when you went to Kent, they issued you 9 rounds of ammunition to put in an M1 rifle. Okay? So if it was us, we'd all have 9 rounds. After the shooting, they collected the bullets, and if you didn't have 9 rounds, you did the shooting. Okay?
Right.
They claim, you said 67 rounds. I was told 9 rounds, and they had it down to 11 guys. 99 rounds went into a crowd of college students, and 4 of them get killed. Wow. And the famous picture of the girl standing over the guy that got killed, and she ended up being a runaway from Maslin, which is about 15 miles. How about that?
Do you remember how you feel after you had spent the week at Kent, coming home? How did that transition go? Did you go on to another deployment after that, or did you go home? Or?
No, I was over then. I personally was in the 68 riots in Cleveland, the 69 riots in Akron, and 70 at Kent. So my part in it.
The years following the Kent State event, were you in any sort of instances treated differently or treated poorly because of your involvement on campus or your involvement in the National Guard?
No, none of that.
No, not in any instance.
No.
Have your feelings about Kent State and just those years in general, have they changed over the years, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Then we go back to Vietnam, more of that, and Nixon's campaign in '68 was he was going to get out of Vietnam and talked everybody into voting for him, and he became the president in '68. In 2 years later, after losing 500 Americans a week for 2 years, he goes into Cambodia. You guys know all this, and that was the final straw. That's when they said they started protesting, and this war has to end. I mean, it's just getting too bad.
So you said that you didn't, you weren't really involved in any instances of discrimination or being treated poorly as a National Guardsman, but before this, have you ever spoken publicly, maybe privately, about any of the events that surrounded you at Kent State?
Yes, I've told anybody that would listen.
Did you have a specific reason for that?
No, well, because, you know, it was a very historic thing, and my part in it, you know.
Right.
I felt I didn't load the gun. I was a tank commander and carried a shotgun, and I put the bullets in my pocket because I wasn't going to shoot anybody. I mean, you know, let's get real here. What a shame, huh? The reason they sent him into Kent with ammo was because they sent him into riots and they had no control because they had empty guns. And you've seen pictures where they put the flowers in the end of the barrels. You know, they have no control without, and so that the guy, whoever in charge said, I'm not sending them in without ammo.
Are you still in touch with any of the other National Guardsmen?
The ones that I was in with, yeah.
Sure.
They feel the same way.
That you do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you contact them frequently, or do you ever get together to discuss what happened, or?
Would you think they would be also interested in a project like this?
Most of them are dead. It was only 50 years ago.
So the conflicting emotions that you have towards Kent State, have you ever returned to the campus since that event?
Mm-hmm. My daughter went there for 4 years.
Oh.
But here's something very interesting. When we went into Kent, you were under orders. And your orders were, when the officer in charge of you fires his weapon, you unload yours. After Kent State, they said you only fire your weapon when you feel your personal life is in danger, and you must be fired at first. Anything short of that is murder. And a guy stood up and said, well, what if they're throwing firebombs in a building and there's women and children in there? Can you shoot him? And he said, oh, absolutely not, because your personal life is not in danger. Do you find that interesting? That they changed it. Yeah.
So, sort of in the same scope of that, the narrative that's been presented at Kent State towards the Ohio National Guardsmen, do you think that that has been unfair?
I think they were, you know, well, you have no choice. You have to, you know, at that truck strike, we're escorting those trucks, and we go by Goodyear, and I'm in the truck, or the Jeep escorting them, and I'm going by the guys on strike at Goodyear, and these are the guys I work with. You know what I'm saying? And being a, you know, a union man, but you have no choice.
Right.
Is that what you're getting at, that type of?
Yes, yes,
You know.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you were a part of the union at Goodyear, is that right? And then there were fellow strikers who were also part of the union, is that correct? So you knew personally.
But when we escorted the trucks, they're trying to break the union, the Teamster. You know, you see what the position you're in.
That's a very conflicted,
Yeah.
I'd imagine.
So with these different positions in sort of uprisings of riots, do you think that in these contemporary times with the events surrounding George Floyd and all of the riots, let's say like in Washington, D.C., do you think any of those events hold some parallels to that of Kent State?
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
In what ways?
Because of the war. They, you know, they wanted to end it. It was time for them to get out. They didn't get out for, what, 73? You know, and they did get out. They had a war they couldn't win, and they were see, it was stimulating the economy because there was so much work, everybody's working and that type of thing. They used to say, stimulate the economy, invest your son. How about that?
It's quite the propaganda.
And I hope that don't put me in prison, you know, saying things like that.
So, if there are some parallels between the protests that happened during the Vietnam War and now, do you think that maybe much has changed as far as just protesting in the United States in general, or media coverage of that, or how people feel about any of that at all?
That, yeah, look what it's, you know, when you look at the black thing, you know, how much they've come from, what they've had to go through and endure and pop, you know, all that, it has made some gain.
So the narrative towards the Guardsmen at Kent State, you said, seemed a little bit fair. Do you think that any of the contemporary events that are happening, that are going on, would you think that there should be a change in the way that things are dealt with?
No, I have no comment on that. I just think, you know, they do it, you know, just like changing the rule. Unload your gun when the officer in charge of you fires, then change it to the other. You know, it didn't work.
Are there any specific topics that relate to any questions that maybe we haven't asked, something that you would like to say?
No, I just wouldn't want anybody to have to go through that again, you know. Especially dealing, you know, the draft and all that. That was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Well, we got through it.
Yeah, I have no further questions, so it was a pleasure meeting you, and we thank you for coming out here and doing
Glad
this
to
for
do
us.
it. Happiest can be.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.